Hi Curious, Oscar Pistorius was a great runner. He broke world records, won medals at Paralympic competitions, and even competed during the Olympics with able-bodied competitors, despite the fact that he himself had no legs and moved on special prosthetics. 9 years ago, his name was synonymous with breaking down barriers. His success story stunned millions of fans, as did the news that he took his girlfriend's life on February 14th of 2013. How is it possible that an athlete from a world star has become a soulless criminal? Why has his trial been dragging on for many years? And what shocking information about him has come to light? And is it possible that soon he may be released despite the cruel deeds he committed? Stay with us until the very end to find out about the fall of Oscar Pistorius. But before we get into it, make sure you also subscribe and enable the notifications. Pistorius was born in South Africa in November of 1986. He was born without a fibula in both calves and his feet were deformed. His parents made the very difficult decision to amputate his legs below the knee, and the boy was only 11 months old. Nevertheless, he was given a very energetic childhood, and the disability was not an obstacle for him. When he was 17 months, he put on his first pair of prosthetics, and later brought up on the principle that there is no such thing I can't do, and he quickly turned to sport. However, there were also very difficult moments in his life. His parents divorced when Oscar was 6 years old, and shortly after that, his beloved mother left this world. At the age of 16, the boy suffered a serious knee injury while playing rugby, although it was probably a positive one. Doctors recommended jogging as part of his rehabilitation, which marked the start of a stunning career, which in 2004 led him to the Paralympic world record in 100 meters. Another record came just a few months later, and this time at the distance of 200 meters, and the following years were a series of endless successes. In 2008, the runner qualified for the Olympic team, and in 2011, he joined the able-bodied runners to run the relay and become the first Paralympian to win a medal at the World Championships. And a year later, thanks to the Olympics in London, there were already 6 gold medals on his account. Oscar Pistorius has become a star, a celebrity, an idol for South Africa and millions of fans around the world. It seemed that nothing could stop him, and there were no scratches in his image. Unfortunately, these were only appearances. Spectacular success overshadowed a series of incidents that suggested that there was trouble below the surface. In 2009, there was an accident with a motorboat which was driven by an athlete while drunk. He then ended up behind bars for injuring a woman at a party, and once again, his hands were chained when he shot at a car in the street. There were more cases with the use of dangerous items because while staying in a crowded restaurant, he was able to shoot under the table, injuring his friend. He threatened another because he suspected of him of being romancing with his then girlfriend. Little was said about it in the media, and he was after all a national hero, but in 2013, there was a tragedy that immediately hit the headlines. On February 14th, the body of his girlfriend, South African model Reeva Steenkamp, was found at the athlete's home in Pretoria. She died from wounds inflicted from a firearm, and Oscar Pistorius immediately became the suspect in the case. After only a few days, he stood trial and confessed to unintentionally taking the life of his beloved. According to his version, on Valentine's Day, he woke up early in the morning to hear strange noises in the bathroom. When he saw that the window in the room was open, he immediately thought that a burglar had sneaked into the property. Without a moment's thought, he grabbed a gun, which he always had with him, because as he claimed, he was threatened many times. He approached the bathroom, and after hearing more noises coming from it, he fired 4 times at the door. When he got inside, he found his girlfriend's body on the floor, and he called the ambulance service, but when they arrived, it was too late. The prosecutor saw it quite differently, who immediately stated that Pistorius acted with premeditation. He presented in the courtroom all the photos of the wounds inflicted on Reeva Steenkamp, while the defendant was still sobbing and turning his head, stating that he would not see it again. His defense counsel, however, tried to convince the court that the athlete's version was flawless and that his client acted out of fear of his own life by shooting. So this proved so successful that Oscar Pistorius was released on bail that day, and the date for his actual trial was not set until the next year, March 3rd of 2014 to be exact. On that day, the courthouse was crowded mostly by the media. Pistorius was accused of premeditated crime, as well as the fact that he committed incidents with with weapons before, a number of charges were brought against him, including recordings from a shooting range where he often practiced using a firearm, and conversations in WhatsApp which the victim wrote that he was sometimes afraid of the boyfriend. And it has also been found that the defendant's brother tried to delete all the messages from his phone and internet accounts. A neighbor of Pistorius testified that on the night of the tragic events, she heard sharp quarrels in the athlete's home. Anyway, this version was also confirmed by the police, who were repeatedly called to the property due to ongoing arguments. The prosecutors demanded at least 15 years imprisonment, while the accused himself did not plead guilty to any of the charges. Throughout the process, he would cry on several occasions and sometimes passed out. Psychological examinations did not reveal him insane, but numerous anxiety disorders did come up. Ultimately, he was convicted, but according to the court, the accused did not commit an intentional crime, and this is why the sentence was only 5 years, which met a huge response from the public. Some said that Oscar was just lucky because he's famous, rich, and also white. In addition, it was said that such a sentence was merely an incentive for abusers of women, and it was almost obvious that the prosecution would not leave it that way. Before that happened, however, Pistorius was imprisoned and spent exactly 10 months there, while the rest of his sentence was to be under house arrest. According to the South African law, he could have applied for it, and since he behaved properly while behind bars, his request was accepted. Which did not change the fact that in 2015, another trial began, this time before the Court of Appeal. What was the verdict there? And according to some, fairly fair, and the court ruled that the accused was guilty of the crime of first degree, and during the last trial, the provisions were misinterpreted and a whole series of indications of guilt were omitted. The judge said, and we quote, "The accused must have known that whoever was behind the toilet door could die. However, he decided to risk that person's life. The victim's identity is not relevant to blame." The family of the victim rejoiced at such a ruling, and from the beginning, they were convinced that the athlete at the tragic night was shooting to take their daughter's life. Soon, however, they were surprised as the penalty was set for 6 years behind bars with the possibility of release after 3. This happened because in order to determine the amount of the fine, the case returned to the court of first instance, which during the trial in 2014 issued equally short sentence, and Pistorius therefore had reason to rejoice again. While the women's rights organizations recognized that what had happened was a shame for the justice system, the South African State Prosecutor's Office also condemned the sentence and considered it too lenient, and as it still had the right to appeal, it quickly used the possibility. In 2017, the prosecution's stubborn efforts to increase the sentence paid off, and finally the sentence was imprisoned for 13 years and 5 months. This came about because the court found that Pistorius was never able to provide a convincing explanation as to why he fired the shots on Valentine's Day night. So it did not help that the defense lawyer cited his disability and his post-traumatic stress disorder. Their application for appeal was rejected, and in 2018, 5 years after the crime, the case was closed forever. Oscar Pistorius was found guilty of premeditated crime. To this date, South Africans have remembered this high-profile case with mixed feelings. Many people still have the runner as their idol and say that you have to follow the example of his sports career. During the trial, many people defended him, and he was after all a national hero, and what happened on the night of February 14th of 2013 was treated as a huge mistake. It was believed that an athlete could not lose everything if he had committed a crime. It happened, however, and now little information about his stay in prison is released to the media. So there are rumors that while he was there, he found a new way of life, and that was teaching Christianity to his fellow prisoners. His sentence will end in 2030, but if he manages to gain a good opinion of social rehabilitators, he will be able to apply for early release quite soon because in 2023, the athlete also maintains his innocence at all times. So curious, did you know the details of this famous case from years ago? Have you ever followed the stunning sports career of Oscar Pistorius? Do you believe in the allegations against him and that he committed this horrible crime? Or is it all a big mistake? Or maybe on the contrary that he deserves such a high penalty? Anyways, as always, we're always waiting for your comments, and we also remind you to hit the subscription button and give us a thumbs up by clicking on the notifications. See you guys next time!